Alright, it's currently 1 a.m. and there is no time like the present to share a little trick I came across while working on my personal brand to create angled or chamfered corners to shapes in After Effects. And you can see they're pretty dynamically controllable and will retain their size as the shape is scaled. I'm just going to create a new composition. First thing we're going to want is a new shape layer. Now we don't need to put anything in it just yet. Instead, I'm going to click on Contents and add a rectangle. All that does is give us a path and no fill. This rectangle is exactly 100 pixels by 100 pixels, so that makes it easier to work with. And once all this is set up, I mean, you can just replace the rectangle path with any sort of path, and you'll have the same kind of chamfered corners effect. So I'm going to click on Contents again, add a group, and drag the rectangle path into that group. And what that gives us is this little transform attribute, I guess, that only comes with groups. So now we can freely scale this shape. Do pay attention to the order of these things that I'm adding. If they're out of order in this visual structure here, then it may not function as intended. I'm going to go ahead and rename group 1 to chamfered path, and I will go ahead and click on Contents again. First thing we're going to add is a merge paths, and that is also going to give us a stroke and fill. I'm going to recolor them actually according to my brand colors, basically giving them away for free here. Don't steal them. Now we have chamfered path, merge paths. This is just set to the default add mode, and a stroke and a fill. We're going to go back up to Contents and click Add again. This time we're going to select Offset Paths and repeat that operation so that we have 2. You'll notice that the path is indeed offsetting, not in the way we want it to. So the first thing I'm going to do to make this a lot clearer is rename this to negative offset, then rename the second one to positive set. We'll set both of these to 0 for now. You want both of these set to miter join. The positive offset, we're going to take the miter limit and set it to 1. Now this isn't going to do anything just yet. When I change the values here from this positive offset, you can see the chamfered corners start coming in, but it does not fit the original bounds of the shape. It's much further beyond that, and that may or may not make it difficult to control. I'm a control freak, so I want it to be exactly the bounds of the original shape. I'm going to go ahead and set these amounts back to 0. I'm going to go to my effect controls for this shape layer, go to effects and presets, and type in slider. This gives us a slider control that we can actually select and rename here. To rename this stuff, by the way, I'm just selecting it and hitting enter. It's not super intuitive. I believe you can also right click on it and hit rename, but this is a lot faster. So now that we have this slider, I'm going to open up the negative and positive offsets again, and I'm going to start with a positive offset. I'm going to alt-click on the stopwatch next to a mount, and that's going to open up our expression window. From there, there's this little swirly gig thing here. I'm going to click and drag that up to slider. So you should see content positive offset dot amount change to effect chamfer slider. This first value in the effect will reflect whatever you renamed this slider effect to. If it's inconsistent for some reason, then you need to change it. Otherwise, it won't know which effect to address. The slider is directly controlling that offset, but it's still not doing what we want. So first I'm going to set this to 0 again. We're basically just going to do the same thing for a negative offset. Again, I'll click on the stopwatch. Ensure this is highlighted. Click and drag from the swirly icon up to the slider. The only addition we're going to make here is times -1. Now that this is set up, it should be functional. We're going to have to drag our slider here, and we can see that the corners are, in fact, being chamfered with a variable control over their size. Possibly the most complicated way to describe that, but that's what's happening. I'm going to increase the size of our shape here so we can see that a little bit better. So negative values don't do anything. Positive values will increase the size of the chamfer. One problem there is with this system is that when the slider value exceeds, in this case, since the square we have here is 400 pixels by 400 pixels, when this reaches 200, our shape is going to disappear completely. So whenever it meets or exceeds half of your shape's dimension on one or both sides, it's going to disappear, which isn't super ideal. But chances are, if you're reaching that point, you're probably trying to scale the shape and change the size of the corners as well. That's what you're going to have to do if you don't want it to disappear. Like if I go and change the size here, chamfers stay the same size, so they will disappear once this reaches a certain threshold. But yeah, you'll have to like dynamically adjust them if you want your shape to not disappear. I don't know if there's an easy workaround for this. If you know a way, you're welcome to drop it in the comments. I'm not an After Effects wizard. I'm just showing you this little trick I found because I did not find any concise answers. on YouTube or on the web when I was looking to do this myself. And it's relatively easy, I think. I guess I can explain what's going on here. So all that's happening is the path is first being offset negatively. So if I turn off this positive offset, we're only viewing the negative offset. So it's offsetting that by our slider value, which is currently 20, multiplying that by -1, so it is offset by -20. And then positive offset takes that exact same value and adds it back on. However, this time it does so with a miter limit. I don't know exactly what that means, but it translates to corners, and that's what we want. So having these both active at the same time keeps the dimensions of the shape exactly as they were before. It just adds those corners. If you want them to adjust dynamically with the size of the shape, then you're going to need to go through some extra steps that involves a little bit of scripting. Again, I don't know if there's an easier way to do it. It just got to be kind of a mess, so I didn't want to demonstrate that, because it doesn't work. You can keyframe this slider so you can dynamically change the corners throughout your animation. I am getting a bit sleepy here, so I hope this relatively concise explanation was helpful and mostly coherent. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I will do my best to address them as soon as I'm notified. Thanks for watching, and happy animating. Don't forget to save early and save often.